Good afternoon, Miami Beach. I'm so happy that you're here with me today at the community newspapers. My name is Kristen Rosen Gonzalez, and today I would like to talk about Miami Beach's 2022 budget, which was voted on and finalized last week by the Miami Beach Commission. The reason I decided to do a program on this is because there's very little information on our budget. The only news that was covered was one small paragraph in the Miami Herald that said we were only getting, that said we adopted a $353 million budget, which included an estimated $23.6 million in federal American Rescue Plan dollars to plug a $19.5 million revenue gap. So, and the Herald even got some of the information wrong in this little blurb that they did. So I thought that it would be much more interesting to go a little more in depth with our budget cycle. And I decided to invite former Commissioner Deede Weithorn, and she is a CPA. She is a financial budget wizard. I know that she was the chairman of the Miami Beach Budget Committee and also served as a commissioner for 8 years. So if anybody knows a budget, it is Commissioner Weithorn. Deede.
Thank you. Although I'm not sure I know this budget.
And why is that? It's hard, right, to get any info?
And so, we did request, and thank you to Commissioner Samuelin for at least attempting to get us this information. He did forward to us, which was given to them when they voted on the budget. And this presentation, although there is more backup, is less than 20 pages between both budget presentations.
The first thing that you said to me this morning is, look at how little information on the Miami Beach budget the commissioners are getting. And you have to admit that this is not a very hefty budget document, is it not? It seems like it's more political than financial. Would you agree?
Yeah, and listen, I'm sure that there is the support behind it. It's just not easy to get it. All right. And that's what I find troubling is how hard I really had to search. And I didn't have a lot of time this morning because you contacted me this morning and I've had a pretty full plate already for my day today. So it wasn't like I could spend all morning really doing research. I'm happy to try to find some research and come back if anyone wants to talk about money. But I think just to discuss what people are given and some of these broad brushes is enough to spend a few minutes on.
So let's, Tommy, I don't know if we can scroll down this Miami Beach budget hearing. So it's very interesting. Mm-hmm. This is what they said we're doing. There's a public safety focus in this year's budget. They passed a budget of $353 million. That is the city of Miami Beach's operating budget, right? And we're getting all of this stuff. 26 additional officers, acceleration, installation of security cameras. Great, right? All of this stuff. Continue, Tommy, if you could please. Should we go down to the budget slide or should we continue?
Kristen, go back to that public safety focus a minute. Okay.
Okay, what do you think of this?
Well, I think, listen, I'm not talking about the politics, and I think we all have demonstrated that we need a focus on public safety given what's going on in Miami Beach. But what's missing from a budget presentation in the slide is, do you see a single dollar listed on what any of these items cost?
No, I thought that was bizarre too. But well, you know what's happening now is because they're doing these budget workshops, which are advertised, but not many members of the public attend them. And I guess they're working out they're working out the budget before they get to these final hearings. Would you say that these should have dollar amounts attached to them?
Well, I would typically, when I was there, and again, it was different administration, it was a different, commission, but for each and every enhancement, and these are enhancements, there was a dollar, it was a price tag. So we can understand, in order for us to say, yeah, we wanted to do it, what it was costing. There's no dollars here. Now, maybe the commissioners were given it and I just don't have it. But there's no dollars here. And I don't think anyone argues that they want to do something, but like new housing stipend for sworn police and fire personnel. Housing for what? If they live in the city of Miami Beach? I mean, what does that mean? How much is the stipend and how long does it go on for?
I don't know. This is what the public, not just a stipend, but they're getting signing bonuses too, because they've said that police officers don't want to work for Miami Beach. I can't believe that though. Do you believe that, Deede?
I do I do believe it. Yeah. I mean, and we saw some of that even when I was there. I mean, it's, and for different reasons. I mean, people would say, listen, I go to Miami Beach. I know that every holiday I have to spend in Miami Beach. I don't get to spend it with my family. So, we have, I mean, the way that you equalize some of that is with money. So I don't disagree with the policy. The fact that now we have to just give them higher signing bonuses because it's a really bad place to work is even more troubling.
I think, yeah, we're having a very hard time attracting police officers. Tommy, could we go to the next slide,
And
please?
by the way, Kristen,
Oh, wait,
I understand that is happening nationwide. The police have not had the easiest rap in the press in the last several years, and we haven't had. Yeah.
No, nobody wants to be a police officer anymore. So look at this. This is important. A lot of people are wondering about code. We're getting 6 new code enforcement positions. Once again, no dollar amounts. 3 new code enforcement. I don't understand it. Dedicated to the Arteca. So we're getting a total of 9 new code. But you're right. There should be a spreadsheet attached to this with the cost, correct?
There should be. Absolutely. I mean, people should know what this is costing us.
Okay. Could we go to the next slide, please? Okay.
And by the way,
tell everybody about the millage rates, because you know this way better than I do.
Okay, I want to go back and also say something else. So they're reassigning 40 police officers to patrol South Beach. But the question is, from where?
Yeah.
I mean, does that mean that the people who live in North Beach and Mid Beach now have less police officers? What does it mean?
I'm assuming so, or maybe they're assigning them from another side. I don't know. They haven't really described that, but I guess if we were at the meeting, we would understand what that means.
Well, I mean, it hasn't been covered in the press. I haven't heard much discovered, and so lots of people, me included, have jobs and other responsibilities. We can't go to every meeting. It would be nice to have information to make decisions in the community in which we live. So let's talk about.
Okay, go ahead and talk about the millage rate. I'm going to grab my cell phone. Tommy, were you able to share this with the Miami Beach residents page too? Thank you. Okay, so go ahead. Tell us what you think about the millage rate.
So, I mean, what's in here that I think is important for people to look at is it will appear that your total combined millage is exactly the same. But what has happened is that your general fund millage has gone up a little, and your debt service millage has gone down a little, and so it's the same. What concerns me is one of the reasons I believe the debt service has gone down is probably because interest rates are at pretty historic lows, and so there's a lot of refinancing. But with all the GO bonds that are happening, that debt service number will probably go up, I would imagine, over time. And if the millage goes up, then what does the future look like? And then we'll get to some of the use of these federal stimulus money and what that might cost to the budget. But again, this is not uncommon to just keep it flat. But I don't want people to think that their taxes are flat. They are not. Your general fund taxes are up a bit. Your debt service is down. Your combined millage is the same.
But isn't that crazy that we are raising taxes, given that there was a tremendous appreciation in property values over the last 2 years since the pandemic started? Or do you think that there was a depreciation in commercial? None of it. It doesn't say any of this here. We used to get this in our budget presentation, didn't we?
Yeah, I actually looked that up, and I think our property value increase, and I saw different numbers. I think preliminary and final was up somewhere between 3% and 4%. So there was no real bonanza here. But it did go up, just not a huge amount. I think some of the increase that you're talking about with the demand and what's going on in the market, we'll actually see in the next valuation. I mean, remember, they do the valuation based on information that's a bit old, that comes out preliminarily in the beginning of the summer, say. But that's based on numbers that are actually derived right around now. So I think we'll see a big increase in the next fiscal year. And so even though we're all living with people knocking on our doors, offering us crazy amounts of money for our houses, a lot of those kinds of things we won't see until the next budget cycle.
Also, a lot of people, and I hear this all the time from residents, they say, we pay a tremendous amount of property taxes. And you do. It is very expensive to live in Miami-Dade County, in the state of Florida, Miami Beach. but they don't realize that our residential makes up a very small pie of our property tax revenue, which is really generated by these large oceanfront commercial properties. Correct, Deede? Those are in the large commercial across the South Beach.
Right. I mean, maybe less so than at other points because we have these large new developments that are, condominiums and such that have gone in. But commercial is a huge piece, and commercial with a tourism or focus is a large driver of our budget, even in the property tax arena. And that, interestingly, isn't capped. I'm sure you know because you're a homeowner, but we're
Mhm.
capped to how much our taxes can go up every year, what percentage our increase in value can go up. But commercial property has no cap.
It has no cap, and it
No
would be
cap.
interesting to me. But yeah, but you know what? All of these commercial property owners have lawyers that go and fight their tax assessments, and they always seem to. They might not have a cap, but they have a way to keep them at a certain amount. In my personal humble
Well,
opinion.
I mean, listen, that's what people get paid to do. But and also, second homes have no cap if it's not your primary residence. So
Mhm.
it'll be very interesting to see with all this money that has come here from other places whether people turn Florida into their primary residence to take advantage of the caps.
Taxes. Well, I think they get shocked when they see that their taxes are 2% of the purchase price of their home, and I think that's a real wake up call for a lot of people who do move to Miami Beach. So wait, so let's keep going here, Tommy. Could we go to the next slide? Okay. So let's see. For the third quarter, LTC 2021 budget, 2022 proposed operating. Okay, so it does say that the budget documents are available there. I was not able to click through and see that. Were you? No?
I couldn't get it to work on my machine. I thought maybe I was just having an internet problem. I don't know.
Okay. No, I couldn't find these budgets. Could we go to the next slide, Tommy? Okay, so this is it. They voted on September 30th. Some of the things they voted on were the new police officers, code compliance. They had to pay the convention center extra payments. I believe one payment of like several $1 million more. So they got that out of the budget. Overall, Deede, this is very little information that we have. What would you say about when you look at the fiscal state of Miami Beach right now? What would you say about all of this? Tommy, we can remove the slides because I think they're pretty. I mean, we don't have that much
Well,
there.
actually, okay, yeah. So if you look at actually the next page of the slides, which I think would be impossible to see because I can barely see it and I blew mine up,
Oh, do
is
you want us to
what
put it
happened.
back on?
I mean, I don't know because it's really small. Um,
Okay.
but they talk about the fiscal 2021 third quarter. Now, just as a reminder, I know this, and probably you remember this, but the city's fiscal year begins October 1st. So this
Hmm.
week we're in a new fiscal period for the city. So the third quarter would have ended essentially in June. Okay.
Hmm.
So they were saying, we knew we were going to use some reserves for COVID. That was not uncommon. Nobody was really sure how much money would come from the federal government. Um, you know, I, whom extremely conservative about spending reserve money, even I wasn't all that concerned about using some reserve money during COVID, thinking one, the federal government would step in, and number two, if this isn't an emergency, then what is? Okay. To have completely be shut down for a couple of months, I hope is something I never see again in my lifetime. And for that matter, I hope my children never see in their lifetime because they're going to live a lot longer than I am. But
And
essentially, our reserve position didn't go down a lot. But the reason why it didn't go down a lot is because we got $38.1 million from the federal government. That's a lot of money. Okay. Uh, and if you look at where we are from the third quarter, we actually had a bonanza because we got, you know, some money from the federal government, essentially. So I think it's important to understand that the reason why our position doesn't look bad is because we got federal stimulus money. And if we're going to be spending the America Rescue Plan money for operating expenses, if that's what's funding those police officers, if that's what's funding our increase in public safety, although I don't think it's bad, you have to ask yourself how you're going to fund it in year two.
And there is a budget gap, right? A recurring budget gap, although it doesn't say so on the PowerPoint. I read in something that Susan asked you. Honestly, if she doesn't cover it in RE Miami Beach, then nobody's really covering what's happening to Miami Beach finances. But she said that there was like a recurring gap of $6 million. But then, you don't hear about that. I did not watch the city's budget hearing, so I'm not sure what's
I mean,
going on.
every year when they come out with a budget, there's always a gap. I mean, that's just the way it is. And then you just, you sharpen your pencil, you go to work, and you make your budget balance. Your budget has to balance in the end. Now, sometimes you can balance it by taking money from reserves, and they did some of that in the last budget hearing. Sometimes, with budgets because you cut things out. But in the end, there's no gap. You always start with a gap. The whole time I sat on the commission, we had a gap. I never had a year where we said, oh, we're in great shape, you can go home. Never happened. And it didn't happen the whole time I sat on the budget advisory committee either. I mean, you always want more than you have money for. I mean, isn't that the way it is with everybody?
Yeah, I mean, a gap, like we spend $1 million in arts and cultural funding. I mean, we have a lot of new positions. This seems like a lot of new recurring positions, new funding. Do you think that this kind of stuff is sustainable, Deede? I mean, you've been serving on these budget committees for years. We've never added that many positions at one time, have we?
I'm concerned that this is not sustainable without. The only way this is sustainable is to have more development, to increase our tax base to pay for this. And again, I've been saying this for years. Every time you put budgetary pressure on a city, you put development pressure on a city, and development pressure on a commission to be able to fund services at the level that you promised people.
Well, if you look at it, we do have the Bulgari Hotel coming online, the Amman Resorts coming online, the 48-story tower at Fifth Street, the tremendous amount of units that are being planned in North Beach. I don't even know how many units have been approved, like 20,000 units coming to 71st Street in that area, which are kind of scary. Plus all of the convention center hotel. I mean, that's a lot of money that's going to be coming online, correct?
Well, okay, so I live in North Beach. I work in North Beach. I haven't seen a single shovel in the ground. So the answer is, yeah, and they may have approved it, but until you see something being built, and remember, everything's behind. So even if they put a shovel in the ground and it took 2 years, we're not going to see it in our tax revenue for probably 3 budget cycles at the best case.
Yeah, it's very weird. So it won't affect our budget immediately. I do think that these other properties, though, and I really hope that they begin to be redeveloped, because I know the Raleigh is also in the process of redevelopment. It's kind of crazy how much development has been approved, but not yet built. I know that there were hotel rooms approved on Lincoln Road. There were hotels approved in Collins Park. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of stuff out there that's floating that has not been built. So I understand what you're saying. We can't really count on it. You had mentioned something to me in 2019 when you and I had a conversation about the city and how its financing works. And you had talked about the fact that the city is spending a lot less money with capital improvements. Like, for example, instead of buying all the security cameras like they once did and spent the actual money doing that they were financing several parts of several, what did you call it? It's not depreciating expenses. Do you remember when we had that conversation and you were talking about different equipment?
Yeah. So I have a philosophy, and it's not one that this commission or this finance department adopts. And that is that I like to pay as you go. If it's something I'm going to use, I like to pay for it when I'm going to use it. I don't want my future, I call it, intergenerational shifting or burden. I don't want to use something today and then ask my children to pay for it. So if you're going to buy a camera and it has a useful life of 5 years, and by the way, in technology, I would argue that probably isn't even, it's probably too short, too long. It's probably 3 years. That's probably right. But in government, we tend to make things last longer than we should. So maybe 5's okay. You shouldn't finance it for longer than 5 years. And so people have got to keep their eye on what we're doing on the financing side. This GEO bond had lots of short-term type things in there. And we have to make sure that we are financing them over, short periods of time and not putting them in with buildings, which get financed over 30 years. And I would argue that with climate change, that maybe 30 years on some of this doesn't work anymore either.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy thinking about what our long-term challenges are. I feel like it's kind of myopic. I understand that public safety is important right now, but this campaign cycle is not talking about climate change and sea level rise mitigation at all. Like, obviously, you include it in your platform, but there's no sense of urgency because nothing is flooded right now. And you understand, as soon as we get the first flood, then all the attention will shift toward
Well,
the flood.
King Tide comes today, so let's see what it looks like.
Oh, is it
Yeah,
starting
it's
today?
today. Yeah, and I can tell
That's
you that.
another question that I had about this all of this the capital improvements projects and funding. Deede, what happens, and I defer to you because you're an expert and you served on the commission for so many years. So let's say that we approve $60 million for that multi-level garage that has a library and I don't know what else inside of it. Oh, the rooftop garage pool for $60 million located where all of the city's plumbing uh lies and intersects, right? And now the
Right.
budget for that, they say it's 100 million. It's probably more like 150 million. What happens to a geo bond project when you just don't have the money to fund it? There's members of the commission and the mayor saying, sell the oceanfront library, but that would just be a travesty. Can you explain to me what would we have to be able to do to be able to fund something like that?
Well, you're either going to have to take them from somewhere else because you have the voters voted on a certain amount of a geo bond, and so this happened last time by not having terrific planning. In the end, we didn't get to do everything we told the voters. This is what I lived with when I was on the commission, because we didn't do planning and pricing went up and everything happens. Or you have to scale a project back, and there were many projects we had to scale back when we actually did them because we didn't really have all the money. So, yeah, you can sell things. I think that's a pretty bad place to come from. When I was on the commission, we actually bought things. We didn't sell them. Um,
Thank you. Thank you.
uh, but the other thing that concerns me about the project, and it concerned me about the geo bond, is, we're already stretched in our budget. So once we open this facility, what's going to cost us to operate? I don't know.
How are we gonna maintain a rooftop Olympic sized pool? I mean, the
Although,
whole
as
thing.
as a mother of two kids that played on the beach high water polo team, boy, it would have been great to have a pool on the beach and not have to drive them where I had to drive them. So I certainly understand why people would like the amenity. The question is, you know, can we scale this down in a way that makes some sense? Have we made sure that we're not going to have to close the facility all the time? Because I work a couple blocks from that site, and I can't tell you how many days that parking lot's being dug up because we have a failure in our infrastructure.
How are they going to reroute the infrastructure? Capital. I remember Public Works came to us in front of the commission and said, "Please don't put this on this site because this is where all of our plumbing is, and it would be really impossible to reroute all of it." But nobody was really listening at that point in time. I have a question. If we have the money to build this Olympic-sized pool, wouldn't that make sense to put it across the street, closer to the beach, in the ground, rather than on a rooftop in the middle of that parking lot?
I can't answer that because I have no idea what it looks like under there and what the schematics look like. I have not looked at it. But there's probably cheaper ways to build that pool. Yes. I do have real concerns about that infrastructure, and I don't know where you can move it except perhaps in the middle of the street or over, underneath North Shore Park, because I don't know where else they could move that infrastructure. But you're asking me something to comment on that I just don't have enough information on.
Oh, did you sign the petition? Like 600 residents signed the petition that they don't want that monstrosity of a parking garage slash library, community center
I have not.
there.
I have not signed it.
No.
I've not.
I mean, listen, I do feel that the people
I
of
mean, I
North.
haven't. I haven't been here for a lot of this year, and it's my goal. I'm here for a few weeks, and then it's my goal to leave again. So I'm not as plugged in as I used to, and I'm perfectly happy about that.
Well, you would be upset if you saw some of the stuff that's going on, assets that are being sold, properties being snuck onto the agenda the night before with no notice and no real appraisals that are being placed on the market. Um, it's for me, it's very upsetting, and I know that when you were on the commission, stuff like this would have never happened because you guys just wouldn't have allowed this kind of stuff. I mean, I really feel like you followed the Miami Beach Charter. You followed our Constitution, our laws. You didn't try to circumvent stuff. Would you say that that was the culture of Miami Beach when you served on the commission?
Well, the culture was here. We tried to do things to the best of our ability collectively, even though lots of us didn't like each other much. Yeah.
Is that always how it is? Like you end up serving with this group of people and nobody really well, you had friendships though. I think you had a camaraderie and civility, right?
I did, and I have friends, left from then that I'm happy about. Sorry, it's still work day for me.
Oh, it's
But
okay. I'm glad that you did this. I wish we would have had more information to go into like the nitty gritty and I give you line items and then we come in and like knock this out. But we got 2 PowerPoint presentations with very little information.
yeah, I want to talk.
Close office tools.
I want to talk about one thing, and then I have to go because I just
Of course.
have actually an emergency I have to deal with. But so just like, pardon my doing this. I have to
Say
close out of a
it. Say it.
program.
No, I'm really enjoying
Okay,
listening to you speak.
so I want to talk about one thing, and it literally affects where I live. So
Mhm.
it's about a policy that happened that's troubling. And I know the commissioner who sponsored it tried to do the right thing. I just don't think that he's been given the right information. And as commissioner, I respect tremendously and think he's done a wonderful job for the citizens, and that's Commissioner Minor. So it may have been his item, but the fault is not his. Okay.
Okay.
And again,
What happened? Tell me what happened.
so Stillwater Drive, which is where I live, we're
Mhm.
supposed to have a beautification, and it got cut out of the last geo bonds. Remember, I said sometimes things get cut, and it was noticed, and it got cut not because of the beautification side, but because it actually costs more money to do some of the infrastructure stuff, and it was really wrong at the time, and I argued it. But being on a commission, that's the kind of stuff where if you argue too much for where you live, it looks bad. So I closed my mouth, and somebody noticed it, our homeowner president, and she brought it up, and they put it back and they took the money out of the general reserve. Now it's a really small amount of money with the intent to put it back.
It was like
She never
277,
spoke.
right?
Yeah,
277,000.
I think
Okay.
it's 225,000 or
Was it
something like that.
225?
But the
Okay.
point is,
All right.
yeah, but you're never supposed to take money out of a reserve. I mean, not for something like that. Okay. Now you can if it moves years and then you want to take it out of reserve, but you know where you're going to put it back from. But this didn't seem to be the case. So this is just bad fiscal policy, plain and simple. And I see this all over the city now. I'm really pretty unhappy about our fiscal management at the city. I'm lucky enough to have 2 parents, one who's in his, who's over 90, that I have to help take care of, and so I have to live close to them. But if it worked for them, I would have to say to myself, how sustainable is it to live here?
No, it's
And
going to get incredibly expensive. I see the money that we're bonding out for infrastructure works, the price of water and sewer, and how we're bonding in all of this resiliency work. And by the way, we've only done like the first tranche, first two tranches of like $100 million. Who even understands how much our water bills will be by the end of all of this? It is unsustainable. One other thing, we took more than just the Stillwater money from the reserves, right? I saw several things. Wasn't there like arts and culture taken from like $1 million?
some of that came out of the tourism reserve, but we did take some money out of different pieces of reserves. I pick on that one because it's where I live, and so I could, and listen, I'm thrilled that we're getting the entrance we were promised. I mean, and by the way, our street deserves it. There's been a lot of redevelopment on my street, and there's a lot of tax revenue coming from my street. I can tell you that. It's no longer a community of small houses. It's just these big monstrosities that are there now, and it's a whole new group of people that live there. And they absolutely have a right to something that looks the way it's supposed to look. Just think that we can do a better job fiscally. We have to work a little harder. We have to look a little harder. And I hope that whoever is elected, that they work a little harder, making sure they understand these financials, because if we do, then we'll all be in better shape. I know I spent a lot of time, and I'll close with this. I mean, I was on the commission at some of the worst potential financial times. And we didn't have a government to bail us out like we did during COVID. And I tell everybody that we steered the ship, and we stayed afloat, and we actually may have come out a little stronger in the end. It took a really good skipper, who's, the mayor at the time, Maddie Bauer, and I like to think that, our crew, myself among them, we did a pretty good job supporting that ship. Right now, for the most part, this is a ship taking on water in pretty calm times. What happens, God forbid, if the real estate market should have another blip? And that's why you don't touch those reserves. So I think that's a good place for me to stop.
Well, thank you for joining me today. I always enjoy your perspective because I learn about our budget and, good fiscal policy from a municipal perspective when I speak to you, because many times when you are sitting on a dais, you're relying on the experts who are there and you think that they're going to be completely honest with you or tell you but they're painting it from their perspective. So I'm definitely, if I do, get elected and I'm sitting up there, I'm bringing you the budget. Okay. You promise?
Well, you got to schedule it and make sure that I'm here, because I like to go away all summer.
All right. Well, we can also Zoom. So thank you very much, Commissioner
Thank you.
Weithorn, for joining.
Okay.
And I'm going to circulate
Thank
this now. All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.